I just need y'all to know that when I become president, I am throwing a parade on a monthly basis. On a monthly basis, there will be a parade. There will be a parade, whether it's my birthday, whether it's Jesus's birthday, there will be a parade. A parade is a good time. A parade is a good time. You've never been to a parade and have had a bad time. Look at the Thanksgiving parade. People sit on their couch and watch the Thanksgiving parade on TV. Oh my gosh, look at the floats. Look at Snoopy. Wow, look at that. Look at the Simpsons characters as balloons in the air. Look at the local high school band. Look at Mrs. America also in a float. Have you ever been to a sports team parade? It's even better. It's even better when your sports team wins a championship and you go to your downtown of your city to celebrate the parade. It's a fun time. I caught myself doing things I never thought I would be doing. I was chasing Dirk around on the streets of Dallas as if he was going to, acknowledge me, as if he was going to adopt me, as if he was going to put me on the Mavericks. A parade is a good time. It brings out the best in people. It brings out happiness, joy. When have you ever been to a parade and have had a bad time? But, of course, if it's coming out of this dude's mouth, ain't nobody having it. Just when I thought okay, maybe things are calming down. Right? Last time we spoke, we had all the ICE protests and all the raids and all this stuff happening in the streets of Los Angeles. Not even a week later, we have even more protests. And what I'm talking about is this No Kings protest. No Kings protests. Now, check it out. For those that don't know about it, right? You probably saw it on social media here and there, but what the protest was about was Trump had his birthday party coming up, and he thought, what better way than to have a parade and have the military marching down the streets as a show of power, unity, strength, and show that America is going in a good direction. But of course, since it is coming out of his mouth, it is seen as some type of demonstrative path towards an oligarchy, almost Hitler, like, oh, we don't want this if it's coming out of his mouth. If Obama said he was going to throw a parade in which the military would be going down and, it'd be part of Veterans Day, we're going to have a whole parade. Veterans Day is pretty shitty as it is, right? Sometimes people get it off. Sometimes people don't get it off. People get Juneteenth off, but don't get Veterans Day off. How nuts. How crazy. Not all Juneteenthers fought for the country. Veterans did fight for the country. And maybe they didn't fight for the country, but they gave the hope of, hey, you know what? I'll die for this country. Juneteenthers, I don't know much about them. We used to do Veterans Day at school. In high school. I remember I was part of student council. I was in charge of throwing these events. Oh, we have these teachers that are veterans, so we have to commemorate them somehow. How will we do that? We'll have the color guard do a specific piece in the front of the school, and we'll have someone raise a flag. On top of that, we planted a tree. In commemorative, in honor of them. A tree. Who the fuck cares about a tree? I would much rather be marching down the streets of my city with people cheering me on as if I'm some type of celebrity. I used to be part of parades. We had a homecoming parade for high school. It was a little weird, right? If you think about it, a bunch of people standing on their lawns cheering for high schoolers. But it was a good time. I was on a float. I was throwing T-shirts. People are clapping for joy. Half the people that are in Irving stay in Irving. And half of them went to my high school, right? You have a bunch of alma maters on the street. A parade is a good time. But because it's coming out of this dude's mouth, it's seen as this force, right? It's seen as this force of power. Oh my gosh, you have instantly envisioned this movie scene of Hitler and all his troops just marching, the exact cadet style. You can imagine it in your head, right? Where they're holding their rifle against their shoulder and their legs and arms are just completely straight, just going down the street. That's what you imagine when this guy says he's throwing a parade. Now, personally, I don't care, right? I do think it's not the greatest look. But at the same time, if everything you say is already going to be picked up as a bad thing, then fuck it, right? Fuck it. Why not just double down? Why not just keep doing what you want to do? It's your birthday. You want to throw a parade? Cool. Do it. It's not like this dude smokes, drinks. He doesn't pay off porn stars anymore. So what fun are you supposed to have? You know what? I'll throw a parade. No King's protest. So this was something that got a lot of attention in all cities. So the actual parade itself was held in D.C., Washington, D.C. Now, I didn't know this, but apparently no protests were held there. And when I'm seeing, how the no Kings thing was kind of structured, I kind of like it. You can tell that it was organized by a billionaire. You can kind of tell it was organized by someone that has workers at their house, if you know what I'm saying. All these protests happened in all major cities across the nation. All major cities across the nation. This is the first time I've ever seen protests happening here in downtown Culver City. The first time I've ever seen protesters. But it was so organized. It was so, peaceful. People are just marching. They have their signs. You would think it's a sports team championship. Half the people don't even know what they're out there for. They just see this sign that says no Kings. They want to say, I want to be on the right side of history when this all is done. And they're out there with the people. Cool. Salute. Good for you. Do what you want to do. So what the idea was is that all these people would go and protest, not to stop the DC parade, but to take the attention away from what that was. And I think it kind of worked. I think it worked for sure. Because I didn't see anything about the DC parade, which I think did go down. So all these protests happened to kind of take attention away from this thing that this guy wants to throw that we don't like. And it was successful. So hats off, kind of. Oftentimes I don't really applaud these protests because either they're unorganized or it's a very easy entry for the riots and looters. And people don't often acknowledge that piece of protesting, is that as soon as you start doing certain things in a certain way, you invite this other side of things. And you may say, well, this negative isn't what we signed up for. And it's the same thing when people make laws or rules or regulations in the first place, right? So both sides have something good in mind, but at the same time, it comes with this negative undercurrent. And that's just how things are. For this No Kings protest, it was cool. I did not go. But some of the rhetoric and some of the messaging I see is just so annoying, bro. Like, truly, it's just so annoying. I don't understand how people made it through high school, middle school, college, even adult life with some of these mindsets. There's one sign that's going around that's very popular, that this lady held a sign that said, if Kamala Harris was president, we'd be at brunch instead right now. Let that sink in. Let that sink in right now. If Kamala Harris were president right now, we would be at brunch instead. So you can read into that a lot of ways, right? If Kamala was president, then you wouldn't be having to protest for most of these things. Because obviously, she would make nothing but perfect decisions. Now, let me go ahead and tell you guys something. I was at brunch. I had a white wine. I had eggs, toast, bacon. I had to ask for the jam and butter on the side, which was a little annoying because it should normally come with it. I had a wine. I'm not going to lie. I took a little bit of an edible before I went. I was at brunch. I had a great time. My whole family was with me. That's right. My whole family was in town. And we all went to brunch at a place in Hermosa Beach. Dishes were on average probably $20, $25 a pop. We just burning money at this point. We just spending money to spend money. Oh, the 5-year-old wants another grilled cheese? Sure. The 5-year-old wants a $12 orange juice? Sure. You know why? Because it doesn't fucking matter who's president. You still have the freedom to literally do whatever you want. You have the power to do whatever you want. You can go get a white wine at brunch. You can go get a mimosa. Maybe you don't drink. Maybe you don't drink. Have you ever tried ice cold water? Have you ever tried some milk? Maybe you don't have the same issues as me. Maybe you can have milk. You can literally do whatever you want. It doesn't matter whether Kamala won, whether Trump won. Oh, well, because of Trump, we have to show our force and show up as a people instead of just enjoying our lives. That's not true. That's not true at all. Now, let's be real here. Let's be super real here. As much as you took attention away from these hardworking veterans and this guy in office that you don't like, you didn't do anything. Nothing changed. Your mission got accomplished, which is what I applaud, which is what I tip my hat to, right? The mission was to take attention away from this main thing. Great job. But nothing changed. Next thing you know, things are just going to get banned. I don't like this back and forth match of, government versus the people, government versus the people. And I understand it may sound like, okay, well, should we just bend over to the government? I don't think so. I don't know what that divide looks like. I don't know how, as a people, we can show up better outside of just marching on the street with signs and water guns and stupid signs. If Kamala were president, here's the other thing that I have a big issue with. And I think this is just going to be something that sits with me for like the next decade and a half. Is we're eventually going to get a blue president again, right? The same way after the Trump term, we ended up with a blue president. Same way we were unhappy with blue, we went back to red. I think the same thing is going to happen here. Well, obviously, you can't have another red. But I think we'll find a blue candidate that gets to the point that they don't try to just shove down our throats like they did with Kamala. And we'll go back to blue. And any policy that's made, it's not even going to get scrutinized to a tenth the way things are scrutinized right now. Which brings me all the way back home to this idea of, I'm so exhausted of people being so overly invested in all of this shit. It's gotten to the point where life is fun, right? I enjoy life to the fullest. But it's a real damper. It's a real damper that people have gotten so overly invested is that you either can't talk to them properly, they get overly offended by things, or they have a stance that they quite literally want to die by because they are in this mind virus. They're in this mind virus to that if they go and say anything that's against the grain of what they see on social media, you'll get canceled. You'll get disapproved of. You'll get ostracized, sent off into an island. And it's not true. I've been someone that's been saying my piece for a while now. During the BLM movements, during all of this stuff, during Trump's first presidency, I've been someone that's been pretty decently outspoken in a public forum. I've gotten a lot of shit. I've also gotten a lot of people behind closed doors saying they agree with me. I could be making that shit up, right? I could just be making up people agree with me. I could just be some random dude right now. But it's true. This is my issue, is that I just want people to fucking relax, man. I just want people to relax, care for one another, have fun with one another. You live in a country that you can snap your fingers and food shows up at your door. You can snap your fingers and your house is cleaned by someone else. You can snap your fingers and when I wake up, my car is going to be gassed up. It's going to be clean. Shit, I might have another car at my doorstep by the snap of my fingers. I can do all of that here. I can walk out on the streets and wear whatever the fuck I want. I can do anything I want here. And I understand, right? The highest level of freedom comes with the highest level of scrutiny. It is what it is. But my message, which has been my message every single podcast, is everyone just turn it down a notch. You're not making as much of a difference as you might think in the grand scheme of things. You should apply yourself to the things that can change for you, for your family, for your loved ones, for your friends. You control your little world at the end of the day. You don't control that much of a bigger picture. I promise you that. So make the difference you can in your little world, and things will be all right. Now then, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ajay Patel Show. My name is Ajay Patel. Welcome to episode 69. What a fun number, eh? What a fun number. There's just certain things in this world that never lose its funniness, or like the little hee-hee moments, you know? Like farts, the number 69, the word boobs, right? When people put it on a calculator, it's always something funny about it. It's just never lost its charm. Since I was 8 years old to right now when I'm 30 years old, it's never lost its charm. Those jokes have remained solid. What have I been up to? I had my nephews, my sister and brother-in-law come to town, and we went to Legoland. Celebrated his birthday here. It was so helpful. You know, like, I mean, it's like one way or another, you're either exerting time and effort or money and effort. The equation, I think, always ends up the same, right? Whether I'm flying to Dallas and going to a birthday there, or whether they're coming here and I need to host. Things end up kind of the same. But it was nice to do it on home turf, where it's like, you know, I think this guy will have a good time here. The weather's better. There's a pool. There's amenities. There's Legoland. We can do all these things that a 6-year-old wants to do that'll have fun. And he's going to get his own birthday party again in Dallas. It's not like things change. So we went to Legoland. I will say the drive wasn't the best or easiest. At the end of the day, it still is a 2-hour drive all the way down to whatever that area is right above San Diego. But Legoland's not bad. You still have a little bit of the, little crowdedness from the adult people there. But it's nothing close to how bad Disneyland is. Right? Disneyland, you see a lot of fatty boom baddies sitting on their wheelchairs, backing up, and you hear the beep, beep. As soon as you find yourself doing that, it's over for you, bro. It's over for you, bro. And my sister and I were having this conversation because we did see one. Tonka trunk backing up. And I thought, you know what, man? It's tragic to see. I understand people have their health issues and stuff like that happens. I understand. But don't you go and say that about everyone, because it's not true. And then I thought about, we were talking about it, and it's like, how does this happen somehow? I understand when you put on weight, you're like, damn, what happened here? I got all this extra chin fat. I got all the extra this abdominal fat. What happened to me? And my conclusion was this. As soon as you find yourself ordering a venti drink at Starbucks, or a Route 44 at a gas station, or a large drink from Jack in the Box, it's over for you. You might as well just go online and instantly buy the larger size. You need to wear the larger clothes. As soon as you get a venti anything from Starbucks with double pump, with extra ice, with this flavor, that flavor, it doesn't matter. You are about to implode. I don't care about the sugar content. I don't care if you get diabetes. You will get fat. It just is what it is. There's no need for you to get a venti from anywhere. A small does it. Maybe you're a little extra tired. You want to get a medium? Cool, do your thing. In no world should you ever be ordering a venti. Oh, well, my app says I can get a venti. You don't need it. Maybe if you're splitting it with another person, sure, get the venti, get an extra cup, boom, boom, bow, everyone's fed, cool. You do not need a venti drink. Anyways, back to Legoland. So, Legoland's solid, man. I think it's a good time for that little age range from maybe 5 to 9, right? It's a small window, because then they get into that like Six Flags and water parks and Disneyland territory, or Universal territory, where they want more. The only thing I would add on to Legoland, which I think would make it a solid visit, is a little bit more adult stuff. And then the food options, I will say, weren't the worst. Because I was expecting, nothing but some dry pretzels and shit you get at Disneyland, where it's like, yo, this is all fat ass shit. But there was a solid, array of food. There's a bunch of salads. There was a bunch of, obviously you got your usual stuff like the chicken tendies, a burger here and there. And of course, my favorite, some Dippin' Dots action. So we did Legoland, come back exhausted. Next day we go to the beach, have some brunch, like I said. And then my parents came and surprised us. Surprised me, I would say, myself and Isha. And it was really cool having everyone back in LA one more time. One more time before like I said, I'm getting out of here. So all of that to say, a lovely weekend. Happy birthday to my oldest nephew. And with that, we get into our next story, which isn't the most happiest of stories. And that is this Air India flight. Now, I've kept up with most of the TikToks and the social media stuff around it, but I'm going to read a snippet here from what I looked up on ChatGPT, and then we'll talk about it a bit. Take a sip of that coffee real quick. All right, so what happened? Flight AI 171, Air India, en route from Ahmedabad to London Gatwick, crashed just after takeoff around 13:38 into the BJ Medical College hostel area in Ahmedabad. Out of 242 people on board, 230 passengers, 12 crew, 241 died. Only one survivor, a British national seated at an emergency exit, was rescued. Now, he was rescued, but I heard he just walked off. The plane struck buildings on the ground, killing an additional at least 29 people and injuring dozens. So this is, a mass casualty event in which pretty much 240 plus another 30, 270 people, almost right under 300 people died. Now, the survivor story. Vishwash Kumar Ramesh, seated in row 11A, escaped through an emergency exit after the fuselage came apart and walked away despite injuries. The pilot issued a mayday transponder. So I think some of the stuff about the black box is still coming out. Captain Sumit Sabrawal had over 8,200 flight hours, and many steered the plane away from crowded zones, according to grieving families and colleagues. The co-pilot, first officer Clive Kunder, 32 years old, also perished. What's under investigation? Investigators are examining the black box data. Agencies. So one thing I really like about the FTA, whatever flight organizations is that they look at things in depth afterwards. Like, one of my favorite movies, I will say, was Sully, because of just, I love the scrutiny that they look into some of these things afterwards to make sure everything was correct on everyone's end and they know which party was at fault going forward. In this case, I still think there's a lot of research to be done, but it seems like a user error or maybe an issue with the plane. The biggest shock factor here, right? I think that the story that will carry on is nothing to do with the plane or the building it crashed into or the number of lives lost. It's the one survivor. It's the one survivor. That's what starts to create this story around this mass casualty. Super tragic. Now, one thing I saw that was really freaky was there was this Asian airliner maybe a decade or more ago, and very similar stories that this plane crash landed and there was only one survivor. That one survivor was also seated in 11A. And you go to this story in which there was only one survivor again seated in 11A. Now, I saw some stories about it afterwards, and it's pretty crazy. It is pretty wild how this comes to be. They interviewed him afterwards, and there was some stories of like him jumping off the plane before it crashed, this and that. But what I think the story that is solid is that the plane crashes, he opens his eyes, and he tries to get off the nearest exit. And he quite literally saw the dead bodies around him. They're starting to get into this conspiracy game now of what actually happened. Now, I don't think there's any conspiracy behind it. maybe around the crash itself, right? But this guy surviving, I don't think there's anything around it. I don't know if you've ever been into a car accident or ever have gotten hit really hard, but your first reaction is to just get up or get out. I've seen car accidents quite literally happen right outside of my building in which someone gets T-boned, the car gets sent in a little direction, and the first thing person will do is get out and get away from the danger, right? They know that what just happened to me is not normal and I might be in danger. I need to get out of this car and walk away. Now, I understand if you have loved ones in the car, you look back, you try to get the person, this and that. But if you have a bag or you have your cell phone, you're getting out of the car. You're getting up and you're getting out. And his story sounds exactly like that, in which you have no idea what's about to happen. You're crash landing. You probably pass out from the amount of force, stress, and adrenaline pumping through your body. Then you wake up, the first thing you might do is unbuckle your seatbelt if it already hasn't come apart. And you look for a way out of this death tube that you were on. Walk away, people find you, holy shit, what happened? Then this plane blows up. It's a pretty wild story. And it's kind of compounding into this world of aviation crashes, aviation tragedies. And I know we're at a time that all of this stuff is still at a better percentage than it ever was, right? Air traveling has never been more safer. But it's just this stuff happening in the air. And I don't know whether it's just like the speed at which social media brings it to the forefront and how much you're seeing it and how much detail you're getting, which we've never gotten before. But I'm also not in this. I'm still not scared of air traveling. It's a weird scenario. And I do want to hear for y'all, let me know your thoughts. Either comment it, leave a DM, whatever you feel comfortable doing is, do you feel more or less scared of traveling via air than you have in previous years? A tragic story for those that were anyone that knows anyone affected by it, whether it was your hometown, whether you knew someone, condolences. And I do, I just, this stuff ain't great. And this probably got half the attention that the fucking stupid ass No King shit did. But it is what it is. And that brings us to our last story. I had a couple of things like the San Francisco grading system and the I can't even read my handwriting. But last night I actually finished this documentary and I wanted to talk about it a bit, which was the Travis Scott documentary on Astroworld. So for those that don't know, in 2001, Travis Scott holds his annual festival, Astroworld, in Houston, Texas. And basically a bunch of people died from just getting trampled over, whether it was from suffocation, whether it was from getting trampled over. People died. And it is not normal that people die at music festivals. Pass out, need some medical attention, sure. Now, it was a strange documentary in the first place, I will say, because you are looking for who's at fault. And in the moment, I remember when it was fresh off the press and my sister was so mad at Travis Scott because it's like, you should know when to stop your concert. And my brother-in-law and I were just defending him so much because it's like, you're in this zone when you're performing. You probably only see 10% of what's actually around you because there's so many things your mind's on, whether it's the set list, whether it's cues or choreography. You're supposed to be a certain place at different times and you're supposed to know what song comes next. There's an audio engineer that's in your ear saying stuff. Now, for those that don't want to go through and watch the entire thing, what basically happened is Live Nation oversold the festival by almost 15K tickets. The structure at which Travis Scott had his stage led for a massive congestion in the stage right area, in which that's where people died. On top of that, all these people that were calling the police then got and found a Live Nation manager and said, you need to cut this off by 10 o'clock. At the point that people were dying was probably late 9:50-ish. But at the same time, the police did not give any stop the show cue. They did not command him to stop the show, and they almost gave the go ahead and keep going with the show. Now, Live Nation at the time got in touch with during the show, got in touch with Travis Scott's audio engineer and told them what was happening, right? In which people are suffocating. This is, just a massive, EMS is overflowing. There's so many people in the medical tents. And the audio engineer is the person that has the power to then give that message to Travis Scott, who's on stage. It is not documented whether the audio engineer said anything afterwards. And it was not recorded that he was given instruction to stop the show. The show was stopped at a point for someone else on stage left to get out of the audience. So then you're left in the scenario in which, who is at fault, right? You always want someone to get blamed when something like this happens, and people should be at fault. And so you go to immediately who the culprit should be, which is Live Nation. The person that's organizing the festival, the person that's selling tickets for the festival, the person that has all the people in place for the festival. But of course, this is why I've kind of annoyed of all of these documentaries, and they're happening so fast as soon as the fucking event's over now. Like we'll probably get an Air India documentary in 2 weeks because of how fast these things come out. And sometimes it annoys me with the level of journalism because, sometimes there's these documentaries that people want us to hold someone's feet to the fire when it happens. Oh, look at this Nickelodeon documentary. We gotta get all these people in jail. Look at this R. Kelly documentary. We got to get these people in jail. And then you have documentaries like this where it's like, you just want to, is this to clear Travis Scott's name? What was the point of this? At the end of it, it just basically, gives a rest in peace to the people that died. And on top of that, just says Live Nation settled with everyone outside of court for undisclosed amounts. Now, if you're whether you're a mother, a brother, a friend of the person that passed away, and they're throwing $5 million your way, you're probably taking that. I'm probably taking it. Truly. That's how settling outside of court works. Because you're already drowning in legal fees trying to get a lawyer to sue Live Nation. Now you go through maybe a year, 2 years of something, and you're eating all these fees and you still haven't gotten paid out. Do you really want to go to court and possibly lose this? Or would you rather just take the paycheck and go back to your life? It's tragic that you had someone pass away, but at least you can now move on with life and not be buried in debt. And who knows if you actually might take down the bad guy. I think, when we're doing these protests and things like that for these entities that we can't actually make a difference in, the difference I find sometimes is in these bigger conglomerates. Imagine if no one bought a ticket from Live Nation. I will say another thing that they added at the end of the documentary was Travis Scott went on 2 years later to have the biggest rap tour, probably grossing $200 million, and it was all done by Live Nation. Because you have to go through Live Nation. I'm pretty sure Taylor Swift also goes through Live Nation. They have a lock on all the vendors. They have a lock on all the arenas around. How to sell tickets, the via Ticketmaster, whatever it is. Live Nation is the group you damn near have to go through when you're at that certain level. And so you have this monopoly here that no one will probably ever protest, or no one will ever get mad at or boycott or try to make a difference in that world. But they'll do it for the things on social media that they want to quote unquote be on the right side of history of. Live Nation is a straight up monopoly. It's absolutely evil what they did in this astroworld idea with overselling a music festival by $15K. I've been to a music festival. I actually don't enjoy them very much. I like having a designated seat. I don't mind spending the extra $1,000. I went to ACL, and boy, I remember that there was this tiny girl facing the other way, And I was just like, there's no way you're having fun. And she was like, this is the best time of my life. And I was like, this is crazy. My sister hated it. She literally asked security to take her over the rail, and she just went completely far stage left, started stage right, and she was done. Me and my friends, we hung around a little bit, and the next thing you know, we just hopped over the fence and acted like we were part of the VIP with these weird wristbands that we had on, and it worked out. But people have this mob mentality, and a lot of people want to try to get to the front. They're going to push, they're going to shove, they're going to want to be with people, and especially when you're dealing with someone like Travis Scott. And look, I'm a fan of Travis Scott. I'm a fan. I am a fan. And I love the rager mentality, the rager culture, all of that stuff. And the only person to blame in all of this is Live Nation. Shout out Houston, Texas. Shout out Astroworld. Shout out Travis Scott. Do I have anything else for you guys? This week's going to be a little bit light. Sorry for the late release. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe. My name has been Ajay Patel. Damn, I feel like I need to have something else. Something else. Is there anything else I want to talk about? Fuck it. Comment, like, subscribe. Watch a past episode. Yeah, share it with a friend. I'll see you guys next week. I have so much leftover pizza dough, so I've been making pizza left and right, and I'm still trying to get in shape. Oh, that's what I got to leave y'all with. Summer is here. Summer is here. You do not need that venti drink. You're going to have to take your shirt off soon, and you're going to have to take your shirt off sooner than you know. You cannot get in the pool with your shirt on. You do not need a venti drink. You do not need that extra burger. You do not need those extra fries. You need to be ready to take your shirt off. Summer is here. I'll see you guys next week, and goodbye.